Game 88, Chelsea versus Spurs on the 2nd of May 2024. Ring doorbell, anyone? Earliers. Now, earlier in the season, this was a crazy 4-1 win to Chelsea at Spurs. And earlier in the day, I affixed a ring doorbell to my front door. Which earlier story do I start with? Well, let's start with a late morning installation of our new ring doorbell. I opened the package, and after many years of people banging on our doorbell-less front door, I charged the unit up and set about looking at the method of fixing. It was fairly straightforward, and I affixed the frame required to hold the doorbell unit in place. Once the unit had charged, I affixed it via some tiny under-the-bottom screws to the frame and went back to the instructions. Read the next steps and went back out to the unit to take it off. I'd had a case of premature asphyxiation. I took out the 2 very small screws underneath. Now at this point I must point out I'm a bit of a fumbler. You can insert your own gag there. The more time I remove or insert these 2 micro screws, the more chance of dropping one comes to the fore. And take note, there are no spares, and directly beneath the final resting place is both a plant pot or grass. These screws are at best 5mm long, and I'm sweating whilst doing this operation with my sausage-like fingers, not to mention my arthritic knuckles. Well, I negotiate the micro screw removal and place the 2 screws in my pocket for safety. It then says on the instruction to scan the QR code and follow the steps. So, as requested, I did, and finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I managed to sort out all the steps and then returned to affix the unit. Now, at this point, I must point out I live in a cul-de-sac and an end-of-terrace house. I returned to my normal duties, preparing for the night's match. It was quiet outside, as it was now mid-afternoon, before the doorbell rang via my phone. Well, it works. A parcel had arrived, and I went to the door and took hold of my parcel. Everything is tickety-boo. Or was it? Well, I'd linked my wife's phone to the network as well. No issues, we love each other deeply and have no secrets, but in a quiet moment, she has been looking through the dedicated app, and she has now realised she can, via the camera, have a live view of outside. This both amuses her and now gives her a new TV channel to watch and leads her into neighbourhood surveillance watch. I am now subject to loud comments from downstairs where she works and my upstairs office / man cave of, "Watch that delivery van turning outside," or, "Oh, so-and-so's finished work early," or, "I think Keith from down the road must have had a knock on his car as he's looking around it." But if that wasn't going to be infuriating, what is about to manifest itself will be. Before we get to that joyous reveal, I continue with my prep. My phone is in close proximity and it buzzes a few times quite regularly, to be honest, but it's face down and I thought I've put it on silent, so it must be a text, a WhatsApp message or an email incoming. I'll deal with those when I'm ready. I finally complete my prep and paperwork, load up my bag and head downstairs for some tea before heading off to the Gary Briggs studio for tonight's match. Munches eaten and stomach stuffed, I grab all of my stuff, including my phone, and head off. I spend most of my time trying to say Ange without sounding Australian in the car journey, and I'm looking forward to the game. The first game was bizarre. A Nicholas Jackson hat-trick, although he didn't make me think he was a natural goal scorer. And Spurs, who had hit the ground running early season, saw squad depth exposed when 2 went off injured and they had 2 sent off. Just as I arrive and turn the engine off, my mobile phone is buzzing constantly. It is a different buzz for a call, a more rhythmical buzz. I flip the phone over, hit the side button to ring her, and answer the phone. It was my wife. For the life of me, I cannot recall what she was talking about, but I duly note it and head into the studios. I get set up and do the necessary mic checks before the silence is shattered by a loud bong sound from my phone. I grab it and look, there is a message from my Ring doorbell saying, "Motion detected by door." So I hit the app before it goes bong again. Motion detected by door. I look at the app and try to find out what to do. Bong! It goes again. Motion detected by door. I find the right part of the app. Jesus! All those buzzes earlier were motion detected by door. Oh, for fuck's sake. As I said earlier, we live in a cul-de-sac in an end of terrace house with about 6 foot of garden between my front door and the pedestrian pavement. For those who deal in metric, that's around 1800 millimetres or 180 centimetres. And currently it is my neighbour that is doing it because he's mowing the front lawn, which isn't big. And we do take turns in mowing it. The other detections earlier in the day were postmen walking by, passers-by, pets moving across the front of the house. We are too close to the pavement. The sensor, which is great, is being set off by any little movement. For my wife and her newfound TV channel, it's great. She's now watching it more than the actual TV and getting notification of when to watch. For me, even on silent, it is buzzing like a busy bee. Now, I don't know about you, but I've grown fond of my phone, as it is a link to the world I never knew I needed and didn't exist in my formative years, but now it has grown into this thing I must have by me. Why do I say that? Well, I don't want to leave it outside the studio. I quickly call my wife and she informs me of all the surveillance that she's gone through. I tell her I am turning my phone off until full time. Chelsea Spurs, not such an action-packed 90 minutes as early in the season, but Chelsea do the double over Angie's side with Chalobah and Jackson headers sealing a 2-0 win. I pack up my things and then hold my phone's button for it to turn back on. There are a few seconds of silence before it erupts into a cacophony of bongs, buzzes and pings. We have an issue. There were around 30 motion by door detection messages in the 90 odd minutes I've been commentating, and this is the messages that are happening at night. Bobby the cat being the culprit for the majority of them. On the short journey home, it bongs several more times as the neighbours arrive home safely and I get to know they've gone back to check their car's locked too. What can I do? This could have a lot of ramifications as I use my phone for filming and various other things. I get home and walk into my front door. It sets off again. It's me! My wife had already opened the inside door before I got there and she'd seen me coming. Guess where? She tells me of the comings and goings of the night, including groaning about how people park outside. This is an issue, I admit, but I honestly think she's now viewing and calibrating the distance between the car doors and now saying to me, if so-and-so had parked a little better, we could get more cars in. Bobby the cat sets the doorbell off again, and I, head bowed, head off to bed. Anyone want a second-hand Ring doorbell? I can guarantee it fucking works. Game 89, Brentford versus Fulham on the 4th of May 2024. Titled, Why Audio? In the greater scheme of things, I sit on the train to Marylebone, contemplating where the season has gone. This is Game 89 and my penultimate Saturday game at TalkSport. I have been through the seasons, autumn, winter and now spring. The train is full and yes, there are a lot of standing travellers as we arrive at London. But you may well ask yourself, what's been in your head or your mind on the way in? Well, the journey was spent thinking about a question I was asked. Someone who listens to this podcasty, diary, autobiographical thing said, do you write this down? And I said yes. And he said about a book. Now, I think I've covered this off in Game 82, but I didn't get any qualifications, and the advent of texting or emailing from your phone means casual writing, almost lazy writing, is what we do. Just getting the point across and not punctuating or really being grammatically correct. Which is good for me because I never got any qualifications. But as I type, a quick glance down to the bottom left of my screen shows in some form that I've now written 106,000 words plus. That is a lot, I think. So I looked on Google and asked this question. How many words are in a standard book? And this is the reply that came up. A typical novel is about 80,000 words long, but maybe anywhere between 60 and 100,000 words long. Anything under 50,000 words is generally considered a novella, and anything over 110,000 words is usually considered too long, especially for a first novel. Oops. And I still have another 4 games and an ending to go. Another reason for audio rather than written, apart from the aforementioned lack of qualifications, are 1, it has drifted away from games to more of an open mindfuck, and 2, being spoken to is easier than reading, I think. Going back too long is not a phrase I'm used to hearing when applied to myself. A worry about what I'm doing this for comes up again. I worry why and how, but I'm going to persevere to the end. One day it might be something of note as a soupçon of life in the year 2024. From day dot, I suppose talking has been in me. I was bollocked at school for, you've guessed it, talking. And now I'm paid to, you've guessed it, talk. And now I'm talking to you again about a little slice of my life. Maybe I think as it slips into your ears and away into the ether, I am happy that my vocal tones are not being poured over like the written word would be for my lack of grammar and punctuation. But that is me, always looking for the easy route. Maybe my life is one long cheat, or indeed some sort of cut, copy and paste method of living. Mentally chewing over the situation I've been thinking about, I console myself with a latte and sit outside Costa opposite Dorset Square in London. Console myself, you may well ask. Well, I don't really believe in anything I do, so the obvious reaction to this is negative. As I return to the 8-year-old inside me being destroyed by my paedophile teacher when I did anything at all, right or wrong. You may well think, why try then? The simple answer is you have to, or else the darker thoughts you fight win. I finish my latte and wander the final few yards to Baker Street Station. My mood isn't as upbeat as it should be. I get to London Bridge and a little sit down, people watching. As I've said before, I find London interesting and enigmatic. It is a bit puzzling, so many things happening and so quickly. I'm not quick, so I shuffle into the office and up to the studios. The early game is in full flow, and I reach my home for the next 4 hours. I've noticed I change when I'm in the studio. There is a certain thespian feeling or performer feeling that comes with entering the studio in your booth. I look around at the studio here in London and it has the feeling of a stage. It lends you the sense of doing other things whilst you're in here, utilising the surroundings, so to speak. Other types of pods, maybe words and picture pods. It is a long way to go to do it, but we do gather here every weekend when the Premier League happens. Maybe, just maybe, another idea has popped up into my head. Well, that will be for later, as I have the deadest of dead rubbers today in West London as 2 sides come head to head to play in a West London derby with nothing but pride to play for, and the pride dissipates fairly quickly. The game is competitive without that edge. Of all the action, and there wasn't much, a Traore cross found Jimenez, who fired the ball high over the bar late on. It wasn't an enjoyable game to commentate on, but it beats working for a living, which I also do in fairness. Across London via the tube, it's normally tight to get to Marylebone for the early train. I glance at my watch approaching Baker Street. I think I might make the earlier train, so I hop off and shuffle across to the Bakerloo line, and there endeth any hope of the early train. 6 minutes to wait for the next one to Marylebone. Why? They normally fly through here every couple of minutes. Now, by my calculations, by the time it arrives and I board, the 35 seconds or so in the tunnel, out, up the stairs and then onto the long escalator, I will arrive on the platform with about 2 minutes to go. Then, depending on the platform for departure, normally the furthest away from the gates, the train will be small, maybe 3 carriages, and full, and no doubt pulling away as I get there. Does the excitement drive me on to attain the train? No, fuck it. I get one off a closer platform to Bicester North because it's quicker to get to Bicester North. I will get a longer train and more chance of a seat as well. So as I approach the long escalator up to the platform, I stand and travel up slowly. In between the up and down escalators is a staircase, and it is a tempting fucker. Dead straight, and it beckons people racing for a train to attempt to run up it or walk fast up it. And do you know, whether walking or running, they are knackered about 15 steps from the top. And once I'm on the platform, I generally look at sweaty, angry persons who have generally missed their train and then thinking the defibrillator here should be positioned closer to this landing point outside of the underground gates. The staircase does beckon you in to try. Many old stagers like me know that if you are rushing once arriving at the Marylebone Underground, it is that static travelator that saps you. It kills your stamina ahead of quite a possible good 200-metre dash to platform 4 or 5. So I say, keep calm, remain dignified, and buy a steak bake or two. That's what I say. Once aboard the Bicester North train, I call my wife, who tells me of her doorbell surveillance for the day. I, by the way, have signed out of the app, and I tell her I'm on the Bicester train. I arrive and duly get in the vehicle for home. She tells me of her day, and I tell her of my idea. She looks skywards. Her excitable old man needs to grow up or find more hours in the day. She then tells me of her growing list of jobs to be done around the home, and I tell her, quite simply, I don't want to do them, because I believe honesty is the best policy. But summer is on the horizon, so I'm sure that D-Day will loom soon.